Scarlet is the most beautiful and talented girl in the kingdom. Endowed with magic, intelligence, and strength, she is always first in the school rankings. But to her misfortune, she is forced to marry Prince Kyle, a complete clueless jerk who says he will make her his slave. But Scarlet is not the kind of woman who lets herself be dominated by men. Quite the opposite. She is holding herself back from utterly destroying Kyle's existence. Everything begins at a ball, full of corrupt nobles with no morals. Scarlet is being humiliated in front of everyone by Kyle, who claims he is canceling their engagement. In that moment, he announces that Baroness Terranessa will be his new fiancé. The corrupt nobles applaud with disgusting smiles, wishing happiness to the new couple. Terranessa, who has just stolen Scarlet's fiancé, gives a venomous smile and thanks them for the compliments, affirming that they will be the happiest couple in the world. Kyle, all cheerful, says, "Wow, how dedicated and adorable you are. Totally different from that weird emotionless one over there," referring, of course, to Scarlet. He further says that being engaged to a stupid woman like Scarlet was a true disaster in his bright little life. Scarlet, with an expression of someone who doesn't care, replies that it was the royal family who arranged the engagement between them even before they were born, and asks if he truly thinks he can cancel the engagement just like that, out of the blue. Kyle says he can, especially after the crimes Scarlet supposedly committed, and claims that Terranessa told him she got jealous because she received all of Kyle's affection, and that because of that, she began bullying her at school. Scarlet says she didn't know any of that because that was the first time in her life she had ever seen Terranessa. Realizing he's losing the argument, Kyle becomes a little irritated and says that just because Scarlet was in the special course and Terranessa in the ordinary one, she mistreated her and discriminated against her. Scarlet already had the look of someone about to explode with rage at any moment, but Kyle did not stop there. He states that, with his authority as prince, he will indict her for her crimes, inventing a bunch of accusations with no proof. Scarlet, already fed up with that nonsense, says that that's enough and accepts the breaking off of the engagement. But Kyle doesn't want just to break it off. He wants to humiliate her, for he is dying of envy of Scarlet's talent. He asks if she will run away and states that this rotten way of acting is truly typical of her, saying that that kind of woman is often called a villain in place. At that moment, Terranessa very quietly whispers, "Idiot." That changes something inside Scarlet. She decides she will no longer hold back. Then she looks at Kyle and asks if she may make one last request. Kyle retorts, but Terranessa, already believing she had won and humiliated Scarlet, says for him to let her make that last request. At that instant, Scarlet begins walking toward both of them and, like a true woman, says, "Could you allow me to punch that disgusting cow in the face?" She adjusts herself, readies her fists, and mercilessly lands a punch brimming with hatred on Terranessa's face. But before all of that, in Scarlet's past, when she was still a child, she had a quite different hobby. She loved to hit people. Her kind brother, Leonardo, asks why she beat up a boy again, after already doing so last week. Since this time she did it to save a poor plebeian child, her case was overlooked. Scarlet states that it's not as if she likes to hit anyone without reason, but whenever she does it, it's for a good reason. For the good of the kingdom and for the good of the world, she says, all convinced. Leonardo says that when he arrived at the place, he found her all happy, still covered in the blood of the boy she had beaten. He stands and tenderly says that the next day there will be the noble's ball, and she will be presented to the world, asking her to tone down the violence. Already at the ball, Scarlet meets Kyle for the first time. When she introduces herself, he immediately calls her an idiot, imposing his authority as prince and saying that she will work for him. From that point on, Kyle makes Scarlet's life a living hell, mistreating her in every petty way possible. Extremely irritated, Scarlet asks her father whether Kyle's terrible behavior had not crossed the limits, but her father, a weakling, says that since it was the royal family who arranged the engagement, there is nothing he can do. Scarlet had to endure that for many years. When she turned 15, she entered the Royal Nobles Academy, and since she was top one in practically everything, she soon gained many fans.
But the demon Kyle also studied there, and, deducing that Scarlet entered the academy only to assist him, he soon declares that she would be his slave. At that time, Scarlet had already built a spirit of steel inside her and was unshakable in the face of any nonsense Prince Kyle did. In the classroom, already preparing to leave, Kyle appears all angry, stating that she should already be buying his lunch. He grabs Scarlet by the collar and she, in a firm voice and restraining herself from smashing his face, says that she will do it and apologizes. But Kyle doesn't accept the apologies and grabs her again, asserting that he will punish her. Scarlet's friends try to intervene, but since he is the second prince, they can do nothing. To prevent them from telling the teachers, Kyle orders his guards to keep an eye on the girls. Kyle takes Scarlet out of the academy and there displays all his envy, furious because she's in the special course while he, a complete idiot, was demoted to the ordinary course. At that moment, Kyle pulls a dagger from his pocket and says he will cut Scarlet's hair to gift it to the crowd from the ordinary course. Scarlet pleads with him not to do it, or she will be forced to tell her father, and he might end up annulling their engagement. But Kyle raises the stakes, stating that Scarlett's father is a puppet of his and says that the engagement will not be broken until he decides. And he adds that she will be his slave for the rest of her life. Scarlett clenches her fists and prepares to smash Kyle, for that had already passed all acceptable limits. But, fortunately for him, the first prince, Julius, who was up in a tree taking a nap, interrupts the fight. He calls Kyle an idiot for having been demoted to the ordinary course and for venting his anger on Scarlett. Then he approaches her and apologizes for the disturbance his brother caused. Scarlett thanks him and says he need not worry, for Kyle is always like that. That angers Julius, who turns to Kyle and says that although he had already heard that Kyle frequently bothered his fiancé, he hopes that knife threats aren't something that happen daily. Kyle, terrified of his older brother, says it's all Scarlett's fault because even though she's his fiancé, she doesn't respect him. He calls for his guard, Sigurd, asking him to remove Julius from there. But Sigurd is no fool and says he cannot do that because Julius is also part of the royal family. And as much as he wants to obey Kyle's order, he cannot defy the first prince. With no alternatives, Kyle runs off, and Scarlett already imagines she'll have more trouble ahead. She thanks Julius for saving her, but he wonders whether she or Kyle was the one saved. Curious, Scarlett asks Julius what he was doing up in the tree, and he replies that he was reading. In her mind, Scarlett recalls that in the kingdom of Palestine there are two princes. The first is Julius, son of the queen and current heir to the throne. But, since he holds a stance intolerant of injustice, he ended up becoming a threat to many corrupt nobles who began to plan placing Kyle, the foolish second prince, on the throne. Thus, conflicts between the two factions happen daily at the academy. And she absolutely does not want to get involved in that. Julius likes to kill time by reading a good book, but now says he has found something more interesting than any reading, referring to Scarlett, of course. But she doesn't like that at all. The next day, Scarlett discovers she came in second place in the aptitude tests, while Julius came in first. That deeply irritates her because she never scored perfect marks. It was always 99. By sheer caprice of the teachers, who, even when she outdid them, made up excuses to not give her the maximum grade. Julius appears, and Scarlett congratulates him for getting first place. Perceiving she is irritated, he comes very close to her ear and says, with a provocative smile, "Getting first place was easy." That was like a punch in her stomach. Frustrated, Scarlett decides to treat it as a challenge and dedicates 200% in every area, intending to return tenfold everything he does. Soon, she reclaims first place and recovers her leadership in the academy. Julius congratulates her and, gently stroking her head, says he loved seeing her training in secret. That makes her even more irritated. Her friends ask if Scarlett is having a more intimate relationship with the prince, but she flatly denies it. The blonde girl, however, comments that in school a rumor circulates that Julius tried less hard just so Scarlett could take first place, and thus he could see her happy. Understanding Julius's modus operandi, Scarlett begins ignoring him. But everywhere she goes, he is there. Tired of it, she asks why he is following her. Brazenly, Julius says it's pure coincidence, which obviously convinces no one. He gives a little smile and says, "Although they call you the Ice Rose, if you look closely, one can clearly see what you're thinking." While returning home, Julius asks if things have been calm with Kyle, and Scarlett answers yes, since now that he is in the ordinary course, he hardly shows up. Then she realizes that ever since the day Kyle threatened her with a knife, Julius has been staying closer to her, probably to keep his brother at a distance. Observing Scarlett's stunning beauty, Julius says her emotions are starting to show again. Stroking her hair, he comments, "This silver hair is beautiful. Just imagining you losing it over the foolish act of a foolish person. That would be unbearable for me." Julius goes on to say that among all the people he's met in his life, Scarlett is the most interesting and peculiar animal specimen he's ever seen. He shows her his monster notebook and says she is, by far, the most fascinating of them all. Then he asks if she wouldn't be interested in getting engaged to him right away, assuring her that he'd treat her far better than his brother ever did. And that's how Scarlett bottled up a tremendous rage until that very moment. She spent years dreaming of the day she'd land a good punch on those crazy princes. And thanks to the fire sparked by Terraneza, she finally let it all explode. Prince Kyle falls to the ground, terrified, while Scarlett, furious, promises to take down all the nobles from the second prince's faction who are there. The guards try to stop her, but she puts them all to sleep and then starts beating each of them, one by one. In despair, some nobles confess they keep slaves even though it's forbidden in the kingdom, which motivates Scarlett even more to punch them without a shred of mercy. And to top it all off, only Prince Kyle remains. Leonard arrives and tries to stop Scarlett, but it's already too late. She finally delivers her long-awaited punch with all her might, slamming Kyle against the wall. With blood all over his face, Scarlett finally feels relieved and happy. After beating the hell out of everyone, Scarlett is thrilled, until she realizes that Julius showed up with her brother. Julius approaches and asks Scarlett if she has a good reason for taking down all the nobles who were at the ball. Since Scarlett is no fool, she says the nobles committed such cruel crimes that she doesn't even dare to mention them, and since they didn't reflect on their mistakes and acted selfishly, she punished them herself. In other words, she got furious and just wrecked everyone. Julius bursts out laughing, while Leonardo nearly has a meltdown. Julius says that when he met Scarlet, he couldn't wait to see her true personality and regrets not having witnessed the spectacle she put on when she crushed all the corrupt nobles. Leonardo is worried that Scarlet's impulsive attitude might ruin their family's reputation and tries to imagine how he'll explain this to their parents. Julius tells Leonardo to relax because Scarlet won't be criminalized for what she did. At that moment, Scarlet starts to feel dizzy and, without strength, faints into Julius's arms. It seems she overused Cronoa's blessing, which led to sudden exhaustion. 3 days later, when she opens her eyes, Scarlet sees a girl on top of her with a dagger pointed at her chest. At that moment, the girl screams that she has to die and gets ready to finish her off. But Scarlet is no fragile or innocent lady. She throws a powerful punch at the girl's face, slamming her into the wall. Leonardo hears the crash, rushes over to see what happened, and finds the scene. Worried about his sister, he says he thought she wasn't going to wake up again, since even the doctors couldn't figure out what had happened. Scarlet, aware that she went overboard, asks her brother for forgiveness. He asks her to promise she won't hit anyone else, but Scarlet cuts him off right away, saying that's impossible. Then, Julius shows up with great news. The royal family has officially canceled her engagement to the idiot Prince Kyle, and Scarlet's father has finally voiced his disapproval of the marriage. And it gets even better. Because of all this mess, Kyle was disinherited. Among the second prince's faction, there were already suspicions of nobles involved in crimes like slavery and human trafficking, and they used this opportunity to take them down once and for all. Scarlet asks what her punishment will be, but Julius reassures her, saying that for the royal family, imprisoning her would be unthinkable. Julius asks Scarlet to stay out of sight for a while until things calm down. And although Scarlet's reputation as a fragile and delicate noblewoman is now ruined, she gained something far more interesting. People across the kingdom are spreading her story, and Scarlet has become known as the heroine who, with nothing but her fists, takes down corrupt nobles and throws them in jail. And thanks to all the blood on her and the many nobles at her feet, she earned the nickname Fresh Blood Princess. Leonardo panics, and Julius continues reporting everything. He says that among the exposed nobles, many were part of the regular assembly, but they've been replaced. The advisor who led those idiots was Godwin Ben Carmine, and he must be punished no matter what. Leonardo says that the king, along with Julius, believes someone is behind Kyle's and the faction's actions, so they planned a way to wipe out the corruption. For that, they created the Court Investigation Bureau, of which Leonardo is now the director. To explain how they discovered all this, Julius calls Sigurd, who was an infiltrator in the Second Prince's faction under his orders, of course. Sigurd approaches Scarlet and apologizes for being rude to her in the past. But Scarlet never thought he was rude, and says she really believed he had sworn loyalty to Prince Kyle. She teases him, saying that besides being a knight, he's a great actor. Sigurd, terribly embarrassed, and out of respect for Scarlet, apologizes again. Julius stirs things up even more by saying that if Scarlet holds any grudge against Sigurd, they can settle the score right there. Scarlet, excited, asks if she can smash Sigurd's face, and he, like a true gentleman, says he gladly accepts Scarlet's fists. Scarlet purposely misses the punch, gives him a light pat on the face, and says they're even now. In truth, Scarlet is very grateful that he helped her on several occasions in the past, which leaves Sigurd flustered, and it seems he has feelings for Scarlet, which is totally understandable, since besides being beautiful, she's a one-of-a-kind woman. As she leaves the room, Scarlet is happy, because now that she won't have some idiot prince messing with her and ruining her life, she'll be able to spend more time with her friends. But she quickly grows concerned, as she didn't imagine the advisor was behind all this, and wonders if the maid who tried to kill her might be connected to the case. She heads to the shed where the maid is being held, but upon entering, she finds only her clothes on the floor. At that moment, a dog attacks her, but she slaps it, and concludes that the dog is actually the maid who had been locked up, Nanaka, from the Beastkin tribe. Scarlet just wants to talk and asks her to return to her human form, so she can hit her without feeling bad about it. Nanaka realizes she can't take on Scarlet head-on, reverts to human form, and that's when Scarlet notices that she's actually a boy. With no other choice, Nanaka doesn't give up, and holding a dagger, says he's going to kill her. Scarlet notices a slave crest on his chest. This mark forces those branded with it to swear unconditional loyalty to whoever cast the spell. Scarlet tells Nanaka that she can free him from the crest, and asks if, once she does, he'll tell her everything about his contractor. Still suspicious, Nanaka replies that if she removes the crest, he'll do whatever she wants. To show that he poses no threat, Scarlet grabs him and throws him to the ground like a rag doll. With her hand over his chest and using her blessing, she recites a time reversal incantation and removes Nanaka's crest. Scarlet's power is the blessing of Cronoa, the god of time, the power of reversal. It's an extremely rare gift and the reason the court wants to imprison her in the kingdom. But as broken as this power may be, it has limits. If Scarlet uses it too much, it will consume her life, potentially leading to her death in a short time. One example of this was when she used the acceleration ability at the ball, which caused her to lose consciousness. She asks Nanaka to keep this a secret. And since she didn't kill him, and even freed him from slavery, Nanaka promises he'll never tell anyone. Nanaka then tells Scarlet that Counselor Godwin was his contractor, and that the mission was to kill her because she had beaten up his son Hein, who was involved with Prince Kyle. He also reveals that he didn't just infiltrate to assassinate her, but also to gather information about the Duchy of Endymion. Nanaka explains that Godwin is a cunning man. He sends people like him to infiltrate noble houses, uncover their weaknesses, and once he finds them, forces them to commit crimes like human trafficking and corruption, blackmailing them into submission. This way, he continually expands the number of subordinates under his control. After hearing all this, Scarlet makes a decision. She's going to smash Counselor Godwin's face in. Nanaka panics because Godwin is always surrounded by guards, but Scarlet tells him to relax. After all, the more guards there are, the more people she gets to beat up. Nanaka asks why she likes hitting people so much, and Scarlet, with a little smirk, replies that beating up those who annoy you is the bare minimum of a lady's etiquette. Nanaka says that Godwin appears once a week at auctions, but Scarlet says she can't wait that long. Nanaka admits he doesn't know the exact location of the next auction, but he can gather information from merchants and asks to go with her. Scarlet says that by doing that, he'll be betraying Godwin, but Nanaka responds that if he can betray the one who deceived his people and sold him into slavery, he'll do it with joy. Seeing Nanaka's determination, Scarlet reaches out her hand and says that together they'll head to the capital to beat some people up. But outside, Julius had been listening to everything. 3 days later, in the commoner's city, Scarlet is confused because she bought a piece of mithril ore from a child for a gold coin, but has never seen mithril so dull and colorless. Nanaka says it's just an ordinary rock and that she got scammed. Scarlet asks Julius why the hell he's tagging along when no one invited him, and he replies that, as the future king, he wanted to see firsthand how his people actually live, because he doesn't want to be just a decorative king, but a real king who builds an ideal kingdom for his people. And that's why he's joining them in the poorest areas of the kingdom? Scarlet doesn't buy that sweet little speech and asks what the real reason is. Then, Julius grins and says he couldn't miss out on something this fun. At that moment, some bandits show up, and Scarlet gets ready to negotiate with them, but Nanaka asks her to wait a moment because he wants to get some info from them. He tells the bandits they're looking for Junk, a middleman, but the bandits have no idea who Junk is and mention they heard about some dumb lady who bought a rock from a child for a gold coin, and that after that, they beat her up and stole the coin. Scarlet gets so furious, she crushes the stone she bought. The bandits charge at her, but she throws what's left of the stone in their faces, activates a physical enhancement spell, and then uses the blessing of acceleration again, taking down the bandits one by one. Soon, one of them realizes they're not dealing with some fragile, delicate noblewoman, but with the beautiful, violent, and relentless Scarlet, the Princess of Punches. Julius starts laughing at Scarlet's nickname, and she, furious, knocks the blondie out with a punch to the face. Then she goes after another bandit, who points a knife at her, but Scarlet takes him down with a single blow. Terrified, the man drops to his knees, begging for mercy. Scarlet asks if he let the boy run away after robbing him and says that if someone steps on the weak, they better be ready to get stepped on too. She gets ready to finish him off, but in a panic, the bandit yells that he knows where the middleman Junk is, and reveals that he's hiding in a tavern a bit further ahead. Scarlet thanks him for the info key and punches him right in the face. Then Scarlet asks Julius what he was doing while she was fighting, and he replies that he was providing emotional support since she clearly didn't seem to need any actual help. Right after that, Julius asks to be the one to deal with this Junk guy, since Junk probably already knows Nanaka used to work for Godwin, so it's better if he goes alone. He reassures them, saying that unlike Scarlet, he won't be violent at all. A few hours later, Julius comes out of the room after interrogating Junk, and Scarlet asks if he at least broke an arm? Or maybe a leg? Julius says he didn't do any of that, he just left him a bit shaken, but he got the info on when and where the auction Godwin will attend is happening. Scarlet is impressed and says Julius has potential as a con artist. Julius fires back, saying that if she thinks he wouldn't be good at something, it just shows how little she thinks of him, but Scarlet snaps back, saying he's the one who doesn't think much of others. Nanaka feels awkward between the two, and quickly realizes he's in trouble, because Scarlet and Julius plan to use him as their mole at the auction, where Godwin will be. Right after that, Scarlet heads to the mansion of a nobleman named Zathan, who in fact is the slave trader whose contact Junk had given them. Zathan gets all excited to see a new customer standing before him. Still, he doesn't miss the chance to tell Scarlet that a lady of her class shouldn't be meeting up with a bum like Junk just to get his address, when any noble she knew could have given her that information. Scarlet replies that it doesn't matter anymore and immediately asks about his relationship with Junk. Zathan explains that they didn't have any direct business. He just paid Junk to bring in any slave that might be worth something and happened to show up in the slums. Scarlet asks what he means by that, and he replies that dwarves, elves, beastmen, and other such races fall into that valuable category. Then he points at Nanaka, saying that the beastman standing there is quite a valuable specimen too. Nanaka looks visibly nervous upon hearing that, and Scarlet asks how he found out that her servant was a beastman. Zathan answers that he's got enough experience in the trade to recognize such things. He starts laughing in that disgusting way of his, and Scarlet can barely stop herself from smacking him right there. But Nanaka holds her back, reminding her that they need to stick to the plan. Finally, when the bastard stops laughing, he asks what kind of slave Scarlet is looking for. She says she's heard about a slave auction that's going to take place in the capital soon, and that she wants to participate. Zathan becomes serious at that, and says that to enter the auction, she needs to be verified. For that to happen, she would have to reveal her status to the other members of the auction circle and buy or sell at least 6 slaves. Scarlet offers him any amount of money he wants, but Zathan replies that it's not a matter of money. Instead, he proposes that if she hands over her beastman slave, he'll take her to the auction, pretending she's the daughter of a distant relative of his. Scarlet becomes furious when she hears that, but somehow manages to control her anger and smiles politely, saying that if that's all it takes to enter the auction, she's willing to hand over her slave to him. Right after that, Scarlet and Nanaka leave the mansion, and she still can't believe that the slave trade happened so openly in the kingdom. She's also relieved that everything went according to plan and that Zathan behaved exactly as Nanaka had predicted. Nanaka is even surprised to see that Scarlet didn't solve everything with her fists, and she starts pinching him for making fun of her. When they get back home, Scarlet asks Nanaka if he's really sure about this, because even if she can remove the slave mark later, she won't be able to protect him while he's in that condition. Nanaka answers that it seemed like Zathan was planning to put him up for auction, and that he won't let anyone harm the merchandise before the sale. He adds that he's doing this to make up for the crime of having tried to kill her, and suddenly starts yawning. Scarlet realizes that beastmen are more active at night and sleep during the day. In the next moment, Nanaka transforms into his animal form and falls asleep in Scarlet's arms. She carries him back to the inn where Prince Julius is waiting for them. Scarlet tells him that the negotiations went well, and he's shocked to hear that she managed to handle the situation without punching anyone. Scarlet immediately gets annoyed at that comment. Then Julius says he should have gone along to witness this rare occasion when she actually solved something without resorting to violence. But, of course, the prince of the country can't just go around buying slaves. Scarlet's patience with him is running thin. So after putting Nanaka to bed, she decides to step out for some air. Julius says he was thinking the same thing and tags along, sticking to her side the whole time. Scarlet gets irritated by this, but Julius keeps following her, saying he's got some business to take care of on that street. Suddenly, a man selling apple pies catches Scarlet's attention, calling out that he's got a special deal for pretty girls. He says that if she buys an apple pie, she gets a free apple, and Julius decides to take advantage of the offer and buys one too. Then, a jewelry vendor tries to sell her some cheap trinkets, and Julius buys those too, though not without haggling a lot first. He even makes a purchase from a shady-looking fortune teller, and Scarlet finally asks what kind of business he really has on that street. Julius replies that he made all that up and calls Scarlet a dummy for believing such an obvious lie. She gets really angry and punches a nearby wall because she can't punch the prince in the face. Julius just laughs at that and then offers her an apple pie, which makes Scarlet feel like she's floating up to the heavens. Julius then apologizes for teasing her, but she replies that he's not getting her forgiveness with just one apple pie. However, adding one more apple pie to the offer solves the problem, and Scarlet quickly forgives him. After that, Scarlet remarks that Julius seems to know the city very well, and he says that he used to skip classes all the time to explore the streets. He asks her what she thinks of the marketplace, and Scarlet comments that when Kyle used to send her out to buy bread for him, she never had time to actually look around. But now that she's really seeing it, the marketplace seems like a lively, cheerful place. Julius is happy she likes it, and says that every time he came here, he wished she could see this place. Scarlet starts wondering if he came along just because he wanted to show her the city, and concludes that if he had just said that from the start, she wouldn't have gotten so irritated. Suddenly, Julius starts talking to himself, saying that he hates being bored. Since childhood, the only things that ever sparked his interest were the ugly and twisted ones. He's always been surrounded by idiotic nobles trying to kiss up to him and had to keep pretending all the time in front of them. But then he saw Scarlet, who didn't care about him at all, and on top of that, he saw his younger brother bothering her, so he decided to talk to her. He told her that he could complain to their father if Kyle was harassing her. But Scarlet just gave him a terrifying smile and said he'd told a good joke. That was the moment he fixed all his attention on her and never stopped finding her fascinating ever since. He repeats once again that he finds most things in the world boring, but he hates being bored. That's why he tries to keep interesting things around him. And right now, there's no one more interesting to him than Scarlet. With that, he suddenly leans in and kisses her on the cheek, leaving Scarlet completely stunned. Julius says it's not that traditional romantic kind of love, but he's sure he likes her and that she's very important to him. Later that night, when Scarlet is alone in her room, she still can't believe what just happened. She throws herself onto the bed, wondering if the kiss was just another one of the prince's tricks to mess with her. The next day, Scarlet goes to meet Zathan again and tells him she's ready to hand Nanaka over, but he has to keep his promise. He agrees, but before that, he asks for proof that the slave really is a beastman. She asks if he doesn't trust her, and he replies that it's just his policy to confirm the goods before accepting them. Scarlet orders Nanaka to transform, and he immediately turns into a cat, or a dog, or whatever that creature is. Zathan gets excited upon seeing that, and that's when a large, intimidating man with fangs sticking out from his lower jaw walks into the room. He stares at Scarlet and asks if she's the slave they're supposed to receive today. Zathan tells the slave, whose name is Donovan, that Scarlet is their client and that the beastman with her is the slave. Nanaka clearly doesn't like the look of him, and Scarlet also realizes that Donovan is half human and half magic beast, which makes him a lycanthrope. Zathan apologizes for his slave's rude behavior and then orders him to take the beast away. Donovan looks thrilled by that and comments that beastmen are known for their fast regeneration. He puts a metal collar around Nanaka's neck and starts dragging him away, but Nanaka resists, which irritates him. He cracks his barbed whip in the air, ready to strike. But suddenly, Scarlet grabs the whip with her bare hands. She tells Zathan that his slave is well-behaved, and if he doesn't have the guts to discipline his own servant, she can do it for him. Donovan just lets out a mocking laugh. Even Zathan looks down on Scarlet, telling her not to provoke his slave because Donovan is a retired A-rank adventurer. He says she'd have to be as strong as a guard captain to take him down. Scarlet asks why that even matters. Zathan, confused, says he's only worried about her. But then Donovan declares that it's too late. He's not going to let a woman trample on his pride and decides to teach her a lesson. He starts pulling on the whip again, but he can't even pry it out of Scarlet's clenched hand. He tries even harder, and Zathan tells him to stop fooling around. There's no way a girl can overpower a man who's in a completely different weight class. Donovan replies that he really is trying his best. Then Scarlet asks Zathan if Donovan will also be going to the auction. He answers that he's going to keep Donovan as his personal bodyguard and trainer for the other slaves. That's actually good news for Scarlet, since she doesn't have to worry too much about him losing value after taking a few hits. And then, out of nowhere, Scarlet throws Donovan up into the air before punching him straight into the stratosphere. Zathan is left completely speechless at the sight, jaw dropped, but Scarlet couldn't care less. She turns to Nanaka and removes his collar, noticing that he's bleeding. She uses healing magic to treat his wounds and hugs him, telling him that she'll come back to get him soon. And in the meantime, he has to hang in there through whatever hardships he faces. Scarlet turns toward the nobleman because of the shattered window, but he tells her she doesn't need to pay for the repairs. He even thanks her for disciplining Donovan, saying he'd never managed to do that himself. When Scarlet returns to the inn, she finds a familiar carriage parked out front. Her brother steps out and he's furious. He tells her she can explain everything once they're back in the capital. When Scarlet sees Julius inside the carriage, she curses him for being such a useless prince who couldn't even stop her brother from finding out about them. Once they arrive in the capital, Leonardo starts drinking strong liquor right at the tea table, asking Julius and Scarlet if they have any sense at all. He demands to know how they could risk their lives so carelessly, but Julius answers that they discovered the location of the slave auction, so everything's fine. Leonardo calms down a bit before saying that he's done some digging himself and found out that Prime Minister Godwin is personally organizing the auction. Scarlet tells him the auction is happening in 2 days and Leonardo panics, immediately starting to plan for the big mission. Meanwhile, Scarlet keeps staring at Julius, who grins and asks if she wants an apple pie like the one they had the other day. She gets annoyed with him for no real reason, but Leonardo interrupts them, saying he's come up with a plan. First, he wants Scarlet to return home, but she refuses, saying that's the one thing she absolutely can't do. Leonardo assumes the only thing motivating her is the desire to punch Godwin in the face, but she replies that it's more than that. She says that ever since she was little, she's seen good people suffer while wicked nobles kept prospering. She believes greedy, cruel bastards can't be punished through ordinary means, and she has to do something about it her way. She suddenly stands up and declares that selfish, greedy nobles are the most satisfying targets to punch. Leonardo and Julius both react the way they always do to her violent tendencies. Scarlet adds that normal people can't even stand up to nobles, but since she's the daughter of a high-ranking duke, she'll be fine. Julius agrees with her, much to Leonardo's despair, who worries that Scarlet's violent nature will ruin the family's reputation. But the bigger problem is that people from the vanquished empire might be attending the auction. Both Scarlet and Julius tense up at hearing that, since the vanquished empire has been at war with their kingdom of Palestina for 300 years. The vanquished are known as ruthless people who recognize power as the only form of hierarchy and are ruled by mighty dragon knights. Even though peace talks have recently begun between the two nations, Leonardo confirms that the vanquished Air Force has been in contact with Godwin lately. Coincidentally, at that very moment, Godwin is meeting with some officers from the vanquished Air Army. He's furious at Scarlet for ruining Kyle's party and derailing their plans, and he orders the soldiers to get rid of her. The red-haired soldier accepts the mission eagerly and flies off on his dragon. But Godwin isn't pleased with his arrogant attitude. That's when a girl tells him to forget about the Dragon Knights and look at what she's brought. She points a weapon at Godwin. But since firearms haven't been invented in this world yet, he has no idea what it is. The girl tells him it's a gift from the goddess Palmia. Godwin grabs his pendant and says he already has a gift from her and doubts that weird metal cylinder can do anything. But when the girl shoots a flower vase with the pistol, he's stunned. The girl reveals herself to be none other than Taryn, Kyle's mistress. She tells Godwin to use this weapon, one that can kill even the most fearsome enemies, to win his upcoming battles. And that's episode 3, folks. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.